that are knocking about poaching them at such an alarming rate. But no, Bob, for overpopulation, very seldom will they move things out. Mainly because it's such a vast area, and so it's almost an open system where overpopulation, as long as we don't put too much water about the place, tends to sort itself out. Now this is pretty good elephant country, and if you just quickly give me a look here. And this bush here is called the roundleaf teak, and I've spoken to you about it a few times, this kind of scraggly thing here. And this time of the year, you can see it's looking even worse than it is normally, and it's this funny little thing here, right in front of us. That's it. And they are really being hammered at the moment by the elephants. They grow beautifully during the summertime, and now when there's no grass, the elephants come and they pull them out and they eat a few of the leaves, and they love the bark of the roundleaf teak. So they pull out these sticks, and they're sort of perfectly skewer shaped, and they feed them through their teeth and take the bark off and leave them in this kind of scraggly state. You can make furniture from this tree when there are no elephants around, which is astonishing. I'm just going to actually, Andrew, just keep on the base there if you don't mind. Andrew, how many plants do you think you're looking at?
Lots.
You're looking at one plant.
Oh.
This is one tree. The base of it goes around here like this. That's one rootstock, and it shows the incredible ability of the tree to regenerate itself. This whole thing here is one rootstock, one Pterocarpus Pterocarpus rotundifolius tree, and you can just see how the elephants have totally modified its shape. In many places, this will grow like an oak tree. So I'm standing in the middle of this basically enormous Pterocarpus tree, and I suspect it's probably phenomenally old. Much older than we think it is. Very difficult to age, obviously, because the number of rings in this stick will be particularly impossible to find. Now, Andrew, we are going to test this to see what the elephants find so magnificent. Here's your piece. Here's mine. You may chew on the end of that.
Thank you, sir.
We've done this with acacia trees. We tried it with guarri trees, which are disgusting, and the elephants don't eat them. Now, these are pretty tasteless, I must say. The acacia is pretty good, but this is a bit like chewing wood, isn't it? Oh, not bad. Not quite up to the acacia standard, but much better than a guarri. Right, on to the water. And with any luck, some elephants. And on our way to the elephants, we are going to go back to Shadow and see what she's up to. We'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And I think it's perfect timing. Shadow has just yawned twice. She may yawn once more and get up, or she may just get up and start moving right away. Here she goes. But yawning is often a very good indicator that a cat is going to get on the move, and she hasn't moved a muscle until right this second. So very happy that the timing worked out well then. Isn't it interesting to hear about James's bizarre encounter with the hyena? That's really, really interesting stuff, and just goes to show you never can predict what these wild animals will do. Even though you may have a good idea or assumption as to what their likely behavior is, the hyena certainly acted abnormally this morning, and I'm glad that James managed to defuse that situation without any harm. Look at her tail flicking in excitement. She's heading in the same general direction that some small prey item, we're not sure what it was, darted off. And after having a short break now, it appears she's going to continue trying to pursue whatever it was. Possibly a duiker or a steenbok. Jean seemed to think it was a bit bigger than that when he saw it darting off into the bush. Thankfully, we're quite close to a road, Zoe's road, and it'll be interesting to see whether she decides to continue moving along the road when she gets to it. But her general direction is east, which means she'll in all likelihood cross straight over it into some more relatively thick vegetation. Well, it looks like it is now time for us to continue following her. She's moved out of range for us to show you with the camera. And it's heating up quite considerably now. There's still a little bit of a breeze, but it certainly is warming up, and you will have noticed that I've peeled off a few layers, taken my beanie off. We really are privileged with the weather we experience here in winter. The mornings and evenings may be crisp and cool, but the middle of the days often turn out to be splendid, sunny and warm, with clear blue skies. There's a road up ahead, and it looks like she may climb up onto a fallen down tree, so I just want to scoot ahead to make sure we don't miss anything. Please climb onto the tree or still be there. Yep, she is. And we should get a good view of her shortly. Isn't this wonderful? And it's now 16 degrees or 62 degrees Fahrenheit, so that gives you an idea of how the temperature is increasing. It was only 9 degrees earlier this morning, or 49 degrees Fahrenheit. And now she's coming straight towards us. And you get a good idea of how close she was to Jean, probably within about 2 meters or so. And what a privilege it is to be able to view leopards at such close proximity. I see she has veered down the road, and thankfully, for the time being, we may be able to enjoy some visuals of her out in the open. But she tends to not spend too much time on roads, this lady. She often likes to do her moving through the thick and bushy blocks. We are very close to where James located her on an afternoon walk when he had an afternoon off a few weeks ago, and it was a very pleasant surprise to get that radio call from him. He found her lying up on a termite mound very close by, so it'll be interesting to see if she heads back to that same termite mound. They certainly are animals of habit, and even though they may not do the same thing day in and day out, we can get to know a few trends that they may be likely to do certain things or go to certain trees to scent mark. She's popped up onto another termite mound, not the one where James found her, and we're just going to find a little gap. Be able to see her. That should work. And again, she's making the most of these small vantage points to try and get a better idea of where her prey could be hiding. On the side angle, you'll notice how the back of her tail is white, but the front part of her tail is black. Now, that's very important because from a camouflage perspective, anything that she's pursuing will see the black, more camouflaged portion, whereas that white tip will typically be followed by her cubs when they are small and need something to keep them focused on their mother as she moves through the bush, and that way they can follow her without losing her. I'm going to continue moving now parallel to her. It's a good opportunity to try and film whilst on the move because we're on a very smooth road here. So Jean should be able to keep relatively zoomed in without you guys getting too seasick. Well, I'm going to have to stop there because she's about to pop onto the road again. Again, just a few meters in front of us. It's an interesting trait that I think she's picked up from her mother, how she holds her tail high like that when she's walking. And Karula, her mother, performs the same little maneuver. It really does make for a great view, especially if you side on when they're curling their tail up like that. A quick scent mark. It's also interesting to note, talking about Karula, her mother, how this leopard is now pushing into her mother's territory, and it's not uncommon for young female leopards to oust their mother from their territory. They are younger and in better shape than their mother, who's becoming older, and that allows them to force themselves into their territory if need be. I'm very happy that you've got to see how she's moving through the bush and on and off this road, which gives you an idea of how tricky it can be to track these animals. Just going to stop here again and see what her next move is. She appears to be zigzagging. I don't want to do any unnecessary off-roading when we've got a perfect road here that we can view her from. But I'm not sure how long that luxury is going to last, considering the direction she's now mobile in. Okay. What to do next? It looks like we are going to have to veer off the road. She's evidently tending back in a westerly direction now. Her general movements has been southeast this morning, but now, like I say, she's veered more to the west, but still tending south. Maybe she doesn't want to go too far away from the cubs and dealer, and that's why she may be doing a big loop or an arc back in his direction. Well, morning, Elizabeth, and good to have you with us. Elizabeth's interested to know the size difference between Karula and Shadow, so between a mother and a daughter. I think that they're very similar sizes, but that's just my own personal opinion. And the one difference that I have noticed is that Shadow has got a very snubby snout, quite a short snout, whereas Karula's is a little bit longer than hers. But in terms of their general size, I think they're very similar. I'm just looping ahead to a tree. There's no chance she can come and scent mark. She is heading straight towards it. It may not necessarily happen, but it's worth trying this. She's basically directly off to our right, just beyond this marula tree, and she could continue on towards it. She's heard something here, but I'm not too sure what it is. Well, good morning, Irina, and thanks for sending your question through. Irina would like to know my thoughts on whether I think Shadow has become more relaxed since she has had her cub, Sindile. And I've spent very little time with her over the past, so it's difficult for me to have a very insightful answer, but judging from what I've heard, she did used to be a little bit more shy of the vehicles. And what you may have found is that since she has had her cub, it is often easier to locate a leopard if she does have a cub, because there's extra tracks and another animal to spot that may not hide off from the vehicles. And because of that, we may have been able to spend more time with her and reassure her that we are no threat to her. Here she's going to scent mark again and rub herself up against this marula tree. Beautiful. 2 or 3 little sprays, and that's all enough to leave her scent. So we weren't far off, but we had picked the wrong marula tree. Good question, Irina, and judging from her current behavior, I think she is completely habituated and relaxed with the vehicles, and that is something that can change over time, and it does appear like her mood and behavior towards vehicles has become more relaxed, which is great. Well, good morning, Anna Marie, and good to have you with us. Anna Marie's interested to know how far we think Sindile could be away from here. I would say within about a mile of where we are in all likelihood, not too much further than that. So not a huge distance away. And she's also interested to know how old will Sindile be when he begins to join Shadow on the hunt. And in all likelihood, even if he is old enough to join on the hunt, he probably won't. They will very seldom hunt as pairs, and he will basically begin to start to just hunt for himself more often as he becomes older and better at hunting. And the ultimate test will be when she kicks him out, which could be in the next 6 months, from anywhere from 18 months of age. It is not uncommon for leopards to kick off their cubs that are now grown into sub-adults and can fend for themselves in order to be able to focus on raising the next litter. But if you take another example that's very close to home here, Karula with her 2 male cubs, Quarantine and Djuma, they've hung around within her property until they've been about 2.5 years of age. Even though they've been hunting for themselves, they have stolen the odd kill from her. But even though they have been hunting for themselves, they have still been accepted in her territory for quite a long period of time. So there's no set, hard and fast rule, and a lot depends on the individual scenario. But leopards, I guess the bottom line is leopards have not realized the benefits of hunting in a group, and therefore prefer to hunt alone, because that is what they know how to do. Well, morning, Edward, and to everyone that's sending questions through, a huge thank you, and apologies if we haven't got to your question. We've got to keep trying. There's lots of people sending questions through, so I do apologize for that. Edward would like to know whether leopards will use the same suffocating technique like lions would use in order to kill their prey. And yes, that's their number one move. They will latch onto their prey and then bite down on their throats in order to suffocate them. And for those of you who were watching yesterday, you would have actually been lucky enough to see the puncture wounds and bite marks on the bushbuck's neck from where Karula did suffocate it. So unlike lion, who can sometimes be big enough and strong enough to paralyze prey or kill prey by breaking their back, leopard are typically not of the same size and power in order to be able to do that. Wild dog, on the other hand, don't worry about suffocating their prey. They simply tear it to pieces once they've caught it. So you do not want to be caught and killed by a wild dog. It's not a good way to go. I would much prefer a lion or a leopard to deal with me. Hyena can often also be the same when they do hunt. They don't necessarily kill their prey by suffocation, but they kill it by tearing it to pieces. Well, these monkey oranges that we're driving over make a terrible noise, but again, it's not nearly as bad as it sounds. Well, we've just got a question through from Halal Bana, and she was just mentioning the same thing about the difference of being killed by a hyena or wild dog. So I guess we're on the same wavelength this morning, and good to have you with us. How beautiful is this view? This is really awesome. And again, she's using these termite mounds as vantage points to ensure that she doesn't overlook any potential prey. Ideally, we would have been on the other side so we could see her face, but it's not that easy to maneuver around here in this thick bush, so we'll just enjoy this view, and maybe if we're lucky she'll look back in our direction. So get ready with your screenshots. I've got a feeling she may just give us a little glimpse. Although with this backlighting, it's wonderful to see all the whiskers and eyebrow hairs. They really do get accentuated with the backlight. Sadly, she didn't give us an over-the-shoulder gaze there, but she is still on the move, and for us to be following a leopard during the day on the move is a huge, huge privilege, and I hope you're all enjoying it as much as we are. I personally love the views of the leopard as they're disappearing through quite thick vegetation, and almost prefer to having them out in the open. I'm not sure exactly why, but I guess it just tells the story a little bit better potentially. It gives a good idea of how thick it is, and also allows you to imagine what it would be like to be one of their prey items getting hunted down. Fiona, and I hope you're enjoying this. Well, I'm sure you are. And Fiona's interested to know, how often can the leopards spray as they scent mark? And I've seen them doing it fairly constantly, about every 200 meters or so when they are going at full speed. So they can do it quite a lot, and thankfully for the animals of this area, there's quite a lot of water around. Even though it's very dry now, there can be a lot of water for them to drink from. So they've got no problem topping up at the various water holes. And it's only a few very fine mists that they will spray each time they scent mark. It's quite thick here, so I don't want to put too much pressure on her, and just give her some time to move off before we continue. Got a few questions through from Charlene and Remay, and they're interested to know if I've heard her making any contact calls to call Sindile in the last few moments, and actually no, we haven't, and I've never heard her doing it. I have, however, heard Sindile responding to her contact calls, and we were really privileged with a great sighting of them reuniting after being left apart. We had managed to find him alone, and had been treed by hyena. And he started letting off this contact call, and we weren't sure whether he was responding to her or letting off the call in frustration of being treed by these hyena. But then he came down the hill and moved about a quarter of a mile where he found his mother. So from quite a long distance, I was quite surprised at how far they can hear one another calling from. Anyway, thanks for sending that through. And sadly, no, we've yet to hear a contact call, which means she's not close enough yet. She'll only let off that call when she gets into the area where she left him. And judging from where we found her without him, she's still a way off from there. So I don't expect him to pop up anytime soon. Although, there is the chance that she left him close to where we are here and has done a big loop around, and we may have found her at a point in her movements where it doesn't necessarily maybe make sense for us to find him here now, but we don't know what she did before we found her. And the main point I guess I'm trying to get across, just like with James's freak encounter with the hyena this morning, is we never know what's going to happen out here. We can only guess, and sometimes our guesses are way off. Just looped ahead of her, she's now on our left, still moving in a westerly direction back towards where we found her. I think in the next few meters we should be able to find a spot where we can stop and allow Andre to give you a few more beautiful views of her. I think this is it here. Morning, Kathleen, and good to have you with us. Kathleen's interested to know how many leopard are in the Kruger Park area, and I would hazard a guess at around 3,000. But I'm not too sure on the most current statistics or surveys done. They're very difficult animals to monitor, because in areas unlike the Sabi Sands, which is the majority of the Kruger National Parks, the leopards will be very, very shy and nervous and may live a life that is not followed by humans. So I think a lot of those numbers and stats that you may find on animals like leopard could possibly be misleading, because their nature doesn't allow for easy monitoring, unless of course you're in an area like this where they've become accustomed to us and don't see us as a threat. Wonderful. This is really a great way to be spending a safari with you. And it's been quite some time since I've managed to spend this long with the leopard. It's also important to bear in mind that we've been the only vehicle here, which makes for a more intimate sighting, I guess, and allows us to always be in pole position without allowing other vehicles to take turns to see. So we have let everyone know on the radio, but with the Birmingham boys up in the north, the coalition of 5 male lions, as well as a male cheetah that was found up there, a lot of the vehicles have headed off in that direction, which has left us in peace with shadow. Sorry, Zandra. Just whipped a branch into him. Let's see what she does next, chap. No, she's continuing. There's a large termite mound. I want to try to get onto the right side of it. Again, it's a gamble, but if she does go up it, it will make for a spectacular view. And this time I'm going to make sure to have the sun in our advantage. So the sun is behind us, and we will actually probably be able to film her from here, depending on what she does. We should be able to get a few good views of her. We are quite close to a big open clearing where it's not uncommon to see large herds of impala, so there could also be some potential prey here for her. Things are looking promising for her to go up this termite mound. She's heading straight towards it, and she'll also know that there's often prey here, so I'm guessing she could well do what we want her to do, and that is head up this beautiful big termite mound. The sunlight's perfectly behind us. Come on. Well, she disappeared straight past the termite mound. I was hoping her to go up, but she did get close. And just got a question through from Georgianne in Illinois. Thank you for sending it through. And Georgianne is interested to know, do I think Shadow, or why has it taken so long for Shadow to become a better mother? Because she lost all of her initial litters, and I don't think it's necessarily that she's become a better mother. I think it's more likely that she has had bad luck. There's so many variables that can cause a leopard to lose her cubs. It could be male leopards in the area. It could be bad parenting, of course, but it's not necessarily the case. So I don't think it would be fair to say that she is a bad mother. And it's just one of those things out here. There's so many variables that we wouldn't be able to pin it on her. John, would you mind trying to pull that antenna up there? Sorry. One of our antennas has been repositioned thanks to the off-roading, because Georgianne did also mention that she's 8 years old now, and I'm not sure how many litters she's lost, possibly 4 or 5, even more by this age. This is her first successful cub, Sindile, who she appears to be heading back in the direction of where she came from, so she could be heading back towards him, which would be great if we got to see them reunite. There's still time on our side, so let's hope that they do that. I know Georgianne of a leopardess that got to older than 8 years old and didn't manage to raise one litter of cubs, and I know she was particularly unlucky because at that time there was a huge shift in the dynamics of the dominant males in that area, so we found that most of the leopard cubs in the area that were being killed were always by male leopard. And that's not necessarily because the female's a bad parent, it means she's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, really. She is heading to a road now, we're not far from it, so I just want to try and loop ahead. I'm hoping she's going to walk up the road towards us. Just trying to find a pathway to get us there. Should be on fairly shortly. And let's just hope now that she doesn't cross over this road and she at least walks towards us for a few moments. Okay. Oh, no, she crossed straight over the road now in front of us. So no luck there. Just going to give a quick update on the Game Drive channel to keep everyone in the loop as to what's going on. The station's shadows just crossed west over Impala Plains now, a couple hundred meters north of Balanatis. General movements west. It's going to be tricky here. It's getting considerably thicker, but we're going to do our best to stay with her. It's just about trying to decide which pathway to take, which is never really an easy decision, but I'm sure we'll make a plan. Genre, thank you. Thankfully, Genre has got very long arms, everyone, so it becomes useful in situations like the one we've just been through. Anyway, while we try and work out what's going on here, because it is so thick, we're going to send you back to Mr. James, and we will keep you updated on Shadow's movements as the morning progresses.
Hi everybody, we've come towards Djuma waterhole, having driven the expanse of the eastern and southern boundaries and found one giraffe highly mobile into the next door reserve, and that's about all. But there's a huge herd of zebra over there, and so we're going to go and have a look at them. Stand by, Andrew. Let's go and look. We're just near the waterhole. The weather's remained pretty chilly today. And apparently the reason we're here is because of the updates from Twitter, and those watching the Djuma camp, thank you very much for those. So it hasn't warmed up much, it's still pretty chilly, there's a chilly breeze blowing. I know a big front hit Cape Town the other day, and it's probably come and pushed up over the mountains, and we're just getting the kind of windy remnants of it. This is actually a really nice mixed herd of plains game. Beautiful zebra, a couple of wildebeest and lots of impalas. Just going to get up a little bit here so that we can get the sun behind them. At least behind us, not them. How's that, Andrew? Beautiful. You can hear a woodpecker calling there. That's a woodpecker. And so that kind of expectancy of the early morning has dissipated into this much more peaceful mid-morning atmosphere. This is actually the best time to be watching antelope and zebra and any other of the plains game. They just seem to be a lot more relaxed, happily grazing here, relatively safe in the knowledge that the predators are not knocking about and lurking behind every bush and about to bite them on the back of the neck. And you'll find that they hang around together like this mainly in order to sort of gain vigilance, support. You do hear fangled theories about them eating different lengths of grass and therefore the benefits that they have to hang around with each other. So apparently the zebra will eat slightly longer grass than the wildebeest, and so the wildebeest will go behind the zebra and eat that grass. But I think when there are only 3 wildebeest and that many zebra, I don't think it makes huge difference. These 3 wildebeest have been knocking about now for about, I think I've seen them for the last 3 weeks. And the bull in this, it's a bull and 2 cows. And when I tried to, they mark they've got little glands in between their hooves, and they mark territory with those glands. And I tried to go and smell just after he'd been marking on an area, and I couldn't pick any smell up, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that this will be the nucleus of a little wildebeest population. The wildebeest do tend to struggle here, especially when they're produced youngsters. The lions tend to hammer them all within sort of very few days, and because their numbers are not over a critical number, it tends to really hammer the population. And that's obviously completely unlike the impala. So the impala will all produce babies during during the rainy season, and they'll lose 50% of them. But because there are so many, that kind of sacrificial 50% allows the others to grow to adulthood. Now, when you've got a tiny population like that little herd of wildebeest, the same cannot be said. If you lose 50% of 2, you've got 1 left, and chances are that one's also going to be knocked off. Some of the rams are still full of testosterone. You can see there's 1 ram there, and he's calling. I don't know if you can hear him. You hear that, Andrew? See him snorting through his nostrils, and he's just herding his females and youngsters into a group. That is, of course, a complete waste of time because all of the females will be pregnant. Morning. How's it going? Yes. Hi. Hi there. And So, sorry about that. It was just the landowner driving past, which necessitated a certain amount of politeness on my behalf. So the ram here is completely wasting his time. All of the females who are going to breed will be pregnant now, and the youngsters, of course, not. But he is, by still engaging in this sort of rutting behavior, he's putting himself at tremendous risk, because he is not eating enough. He won't be nearly as vigilant for predators as he should be, so he's at real risk. And it's interesting, there are one or two males who still sort of trying to herd their females, and I think it's probably an abnormal sort of amount of testosterone in them that makes them do that. Many of the others have started to form their little bachelor groups, which is a far more sort of stable arrangement for the rest of the year. Liz in Wisconsin, you apparently have seen a pregnant zebra and you want to know if she's there. Well, Liz, only one way to find out. Let's go and have a quick look.
That impala has a bone in its mouth.
Okay, before we carry on though, Andrew's just spotted that an impala is chewing a bone. And absolutely, impala will definitely chew bones. Especially this time of year, all the antelope will do it, because the nutrients in the grass is obviously so low. So they will chew bones for nutrients like calcium and phosphorus. They don't chew them so much as suck them. But like you might a lollipop, and they drop them onto the ground and leave them there for something else to come and eat. So I've seen that quite a lot since I've got to Djuma. We had Nyala sucking on tortoise shells at one stage. And I think Brent had Nyala sucking on buffalo ribs the other day, which sounded quite delicious. And then the impala here are obviously sucking on some kind of bone. So we're just going to go around the corner for Liz and just see if we can't see if one of those zebras is pregnant. Liz, I'm not sure if this is the same herd, but quite likely that it is. So let's go and have a look. Right, let's have a look from left to right, Andrew. Let us get in on the bellies and have a look-see.
Left to right.
From left to right, yes. Yes, that's left. Right, well that's a baby there, so we can discount that one. That female there yeah, she could be pregnant. The one that's in screen now could easily be pregnant. She's got quite swollen teats and a big hanging belly. Remember, Liz, it's difficult to tell because zebras are hindgut fermenters, so they constantly look quite fat. But I think that's a pretty good candidate for a pregnant zebra. Let's carry on there to the right, Andrew. Yeah, let's start on that group. No, I wouldn't say any of those look pregnant. One of them is juvenile, and the others are... There's one mare and one stallion. If we just pan over the rest, that group there, that could be a pregnant female, absolutely, I think. What do you think, Andrew? She's got quite a pot belly on her. She looks quite pregnant. She might be pregnant. So Liz, I would say possibility of 2 pregnancies here. And this is a very large herd of zebra for this group, for this area. And you'll probably find that it's 2 or 3 harems, or maybe a group of youngsters, and some others. Normal sort of size is 1 stallion, 2 or 3 mares, and then the youngsters. This would be quite a big group, so I'm just going to check and see how many stallions I can find. Right, so thank you very much to Mark and Sandy, our two faithful zoomies. You say that we see giant eel owl quite often on the camera at the Djuma waterhole, which is just behind us, but we can't really get an angle of the camera. And apparently there's a great enthusiasm for owls. And Sandy, you say that there's also a camera sitting at a barn owl nest somewhere, which sounds fascinating. I'll have to go and have a look at that. And thank you very much for those updates. We're going to go across to Shadow and Scott. Apparently Shadow is starting to stalk some impala, which sounds rather exciting. Andrew and I will enjoy this mixed herd of animals.
Welcome back, everyone, and it sounds like you've just come from a really beautiful scene with all that game at WildEarthTV Dam. But it's a very different scenario here. You would have seen how Shadow is creeping very carefully, and what she's creeping on her morning activity. She hasn't been successful hunting, but it certainly has made for some great viewing. Now again, it's tricky to decide where to park and what to do, so I'm just going to try and think about this and not interfere. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here temporarily just to show you where this large herd of impala are. As you can see, they're in an open clearing, which is going to make it exceptionally difficult for her to creep up on them. And interestingly enough, we've come back into basically the same area where we found her. So she's done about a bit of a 2-mile circle back to this area. We found her a couple of 100 meters away further in this direction earlier this morning. And she's come back here, and that's making me feel like Sandila, her cub, could be close. She hasn't let off any contact calls yet, but she could be very close to him. You can see now she's found a nice shady spot. It is heating up considerably, and from this position she can monitor the impala. She's probably already assessed that they're in a very difficult position to hunt, especially without the cover of darkness. So what she may plan to do now is simply wait nearby in the hope that possibly the impala will naturally move onto her. The perfect time for her to do some grooming. She's been on the move for a couple of hours now, and she has yet to groom herself even once, so important for her now to take this time to maintain her very clean coats and get rid of all the burrs and little parasites that may have latched onto her. Got a question through from Halal Bonner, and it's a good one. Thanks for sending it through. They would I'd like to know, how big is a female leopard's territory or range? A lot will depend on the area that the leopard lives in, but here in the Sabi Sands, about 2 to 3 square miles will be your average size of a leopard's territory, the female leopard's territory, and males can be 3 or 4 times that in this area. So you can often find one dominant male may have 3 or 4 females within his territory. But that will all depend on how successful the individual female or male is. If they are big enough and strong enough, they will be able to chase off other competition and ensure that they've got a very large territory in which to raise cubs and also do their hunting. Go ahead. Ephraim, I'm currently probably 100 meters from Triple M, close to the open clearings just south of the power lines. So we're south of the power lines and still east, about 100 meters east of Triple M. I think I can hear your audio. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to call Ephraim into the sighting. Okay, just if you're south of the power line, stop and I'll give you a rev. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up the vehicle and give a little bit of an engine rev, and that way Ephraim, who's nearby, will be able to hopefully hear us and that way know exactly where we are. Did you copy that audio, F? Okay, copy. When you see those jackalberries south of the power lines, we're just south of those 2 jackalberries. No, she's lying up now. Sorry about that, but it's really important for us to help out the fellow guides and make sure we share as much of these beautiful sightings as we can with everyone. Well folks, while we try and help Ephraim get into the sighting, we're going to cut back to James quickly and allow him to say goodbye to all of you, and we will see you in a couple of minutes to also say goodbye. See you later.
Hello everybody, we're still, Andrew and I, enjoying this rather marvellous general game sighting. We've had zebras fighting with each other, a couple of zebras grooming each other, and a little foal that was having a little drink, and all of that watched by that fork-tailed drongo that we were watching there with Andrew now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guests of distinction, Andrew is going on leave for 2 weeks, and so you won't see him for a little while. And just while you consider the terrible news that Andrew is taking a holiday, Laura in Michigan, you want to know, do zebra have is there a purpose to the mane? Excellent question. Is there a purpose to a horse's mane? Yes, I suppose there is. I mean, there's sort of fly resistance in some ways, but a zebra's mane is completely different from a horse's, so I actually couldn't tell you. I suspect it has something to do with the way it moves. You see how it stands up like that? It probably is a sort of follow-on effect from the stripes, which tend to confuse predators, and I suspect it's got something to do with that. They do swish from side to side when the zebras are sort of shaking away flies, but it's an interesting one. I think I'll have to do a bit of research on it. My guess is that would be sort of a continuum of the stripes. Anna-Marie, you've asked an interesting question about the hump behind the back. So basically the withers is what you call it on a horse. The hump sort of just above the shoulders behind the mane, where the mane ends. And you've asked if there's a deposit of fat there that supplies energy in times of hardship. I don't think there's a specific, doesn't tend to be a particularly fatty area, that particular bone, but I suspect that they're all along the back there, especially around the kidneys and around the liver at the back, or kidneys, not the liver. There probably are fatty deposits that would be used. And just below the neck there could well be a fatty deposit that is used during times of hardship. So we're just going to close up here. I would like to thank Andrew. He's been here since I started 5 weeks ago, and it's been a great pleasure working with him. He's going off on leave. Don't worry, he will be back. And so we're going to go across to Scott now to say a final goodbye. But thank you for all your questions and commentary today. It's been a slightly frustrating day for Andrew and I, but it's been beautiful nevertheless, and I'm looking forward to a beautiful midday. Thank you to the control room as well, Nikki and Tara, and Scott and Brian on the other vehicle, and we'll see you later.
Welcome back, everyone, and as you can see, Shadow is still taking some time to relax. We are very, very close to those impala, but not quite close enough for her to launch an attack, and I think she's made a very wise move by sitting here and waiting in the hope that maybe the impala will move towards her, or maybe conditions will change more into her favor. But for now, she's made an educated decision of an adult leopard to sit and wait nearby, keeping the prey in close proximity, but not charging in there for no good reason. Well, sadly, this morning's broadcast has come to a close, but it has been a very memorable one for me, and I'm sure a lot of you have also enjoyed it. If it was your first one, it was a good time to join, and it was great to have you with us. Don't forget, we're also out later on this afternoon. Basically in about 6 hours time we'll be going out again, and we'll be doing another 3-hour broadcast. So tune in then, and who knows, we might be able to find her again on the Sunset Safari. If not, there's lots of other animals out here, and we look forward to sharing whatever we can with you. Big thanks to Gendre, who did a great job on camera and received a few flying branches as we were off-roading after this leopard today, so he took a bit of punishment, and I thank you for that. And also a big thank you to Tara, who directed the show, and to Nikki, who was lending a hand in final control. We'll see you all later on.